If you've been around the channel for a while, then you'll know I like covering GBA ports of various all-home console games, as I do feel they're an interesting topic to cover and indulge into, even more when the port in question is not a carbon copy of the source material, but an entirely new game based on it. The mere idea of seeing some home console games being able to be played on the go back then must have felt surreal to any kid growing up in the 2000s. When the idea of owning a smartphone that will be able to run stuff other than Snake and Sokoban was years ahead of us. And the game I wanna cover today is actually one that can be easy to overlook when compared to other games in its series. And I'm not talking about just any series, but one of the most well-known and beloved of the golden era of N64 platformers. This being Banjo Kazooie and Banjo Tooie. Two games that, although presented many core similarities like the quirky humor and satisfying gameplay, were also really different in many other ways, and these two games are really up there when it comes to open world collectathons. But not a lot of people know there was actually a third Banjo Kazooie game that came out for the Game Boy Advance, this being Banjo Kazooie Grunty's Revenge. This was the first and only Banjo Kazooie game on a portable console, and of course, you could always count Banjo Pilot, but we know that's a completely different type of game that didn't even start as a Banjo game. But that's a topic for another day. This game takes place between the two N64 games, taking a different approach at the events that happened after Grunty got defeated in the first game, with her soul being transferred into a mechanical version of herself, and also kidnapping Kazooie with the purpose of taking her to the past and preventing her and Banjo from ever meeting. And now it's up to us to travel back to the past, save Kazooie, and of course, beat Grunty again. But despite this plot point and the fact we only play as Banjo for the first part of this game, we also get to rescue Kazooie very early. So don't worry if you think that's a long-term goal. We do get to play with both and enjoy their characteristic mechanics throughout the game. Now, unlike stuff like Croc and Gex that took a 2D side-scrolling approach in order to be able to see a release in a portable console, Grunty's Revenge goes in another direction, which is an isometric top-down view of the game, much like in a 2D Zelda game, and that gives us the illusion of being in a free-roaming open world while being in 2D at the same time. The Spyro games on the GBA do something similar to be able to work like the PS1 games do. For a lot of people, this might seem very trivial and confusing, but for me personally, it's something I love seeing being approached in this version of the N64 formula. As I mentioned before, you do start playing with Banjo alone, and since you travel to the past, there's a couple things that make reference to this, such as a new move teacher called Bossai, who is Bottle's grandpa, and Mumbo Jumbo being a teenager beginner shaman who has never done any magic trick before meeting us. So we're essentially his guinea pig. But other than that, there's not really any major aspect of the game that makes it clear that this takes place in the past, as all the environments are just your usual Banjo-Kazooie type of level. Speaking of which, this level does feature a decent blend of Kazooie and Tooie characteristics and levels. We got the main hub world, Spiral Mountain, which is interesting because it was not a hub world in the original Banjo-Kazooie, it was Gruntilda's lair. But this time they decided to make Spiral Mountain a lot more explorable and with its own set of notes and jiggies, which also come back as the core collectible items in the game, as well as Jinjos. In more of a Tooie fashion, the way we unlock levels in the game is by collecting a certain amount of jiggies and bringing them to Jiggy to be able to unlock said level. Although there's no jigsaw puzzle challenge or anything here, we just unlock the level and that's it. This level features a pretty decent variety of levels, from themes not explored in either of the previous games such as the farm theme level Cliff Farm, to a couple levels which combine themes explored previously, like Regal Beach being a level based on Treasure Trove Cove, and Freezing Furnace, a level being based on Hellfire Peaks, with an ice side and a fire side. There's also a level called Spiller's Harbor, which is essentially a blend between Rusty Bucket Bay and Witchy World, and the concept of merging two levels from the two games together seems pretty interesting to me, and something that works out pretty well in the game. Now, while playing as Banjo alone doesn't last very long, you do learn a couple abilities before rescuing Kazooie. But these are essentially just being able to attack with your backpack and roll. And in my opinion, the real game starts once you get Kazooie, and you get the actual good moves, obviously including the amazing move that is the Talon Trot. Being able to do this alone is what made me realize I was playing an actual Banjo Kazooie game. And while many of the moves are from previous games, there's also a couple changes. The biggest one being that there is no flying ability in this game, which is honestly understandable, since I don't think that will be able to work in an isometric top-down view capacity. There's only so much you will be able to do. Funnily enough, however, is that the red feather pads are still in the game, but this time they work for you to be able to use the gold feathers that grant invincibility, meaning you can no longer do it by command, and have to find one of set paths to become invincible. It's not really a big issue by any means, but I still thought it was worth mentioning. You can also use different types of eggs with Kazooie, which are not only used to aim at enemies, but also to do stuff like triggering doors and platforms, and even putting out fires. Moving on from that, this game also features interesting stuff such as minigames that you're able to access in the levels that you have to complete in order to get a Jiggy. For the most part they're fun, but they will be reused in different levels, with the three main minigames being going down a slide, fishing, and having to battle enemies in a boat. That's it. But another aspect of this game that really surprised me are the Mumbo Jumbo transformations. All of these are brand new and with fun mechanics, such as a mouse that we use to be able to reach small places, and an octopus that we use in waters that would otherwise be harmful to us. So the variety in that regard is really great. With all of that said, a question that you might be thinking of right now is this game anything we haven't seen before in terms of a Banjo Kazooie title? Well, yes and no. Yes, because with this being a GBA title, a lot of things are going to be different when downscaled. And this game does introduce a lot of new features and original places to be that make this experience a unique one. And no, because you're still going to get a lot of elements already present in Banjo Kazooie and Tooie. If you're familiar with both games, then you'll definitely be able to tell a lot of elements have been transferred from the N64 into this game, once again making it a blend of those two titles in a portable console. And like many other games I love, it has some flaws, such as the challenges in which you need to trigger a switch that will spawn a Jiggy or a pad, and then you have to approach it as fast as possible because it is timed. Sometimes this isn't that annoying, but in a level like Freezing Furnace, with how narrow the platform you're in is, it can become obnoxious. And combining that with the already tedious ice physics can make for that Jiggy to be a nightmare. Another aspect I don't like is how the background can sometimes blend with the notes, most notably in the level Briggle Beach, in which you gotta do a section as a mouse, and the whole background is in the same color as set notes. It might not seem like a big deal, but it can be difficult to figure out where things are if you're unable to distinguish them from the background. The biggest flaw, in my opinion, however, is the final boss fight against Grunty. So, you do battle both Klongo and Grunty throughout the game in different capacities. And none of these battles are actually annoying or anything. They're really just there so that you are able to collect a Jiggy and a Moomba token for your transformations. And I didn't really have any issue with them. The problem is specifically during the final boss battle, which has not one, not two, but 5 phases. So the way it works is you first battle Grunty, then you do a little quiz in the same fashion as Grunty's Furnace Fun in the first game, then you battle Klongo, then another quiz, and then Grunty again. And the problem with this is that it does get progressively harder, and unless you have enough health to be able to make it to the very last section and win, you're just not gonna make it. And if you end up losing this boss battle, you have to redo everything from scratch, every time. When I first played this game several years ago, I dropped it due to never being able to beat this final boss because of this. And even here I had to rely on save states because of the length of this fight getting really stupid. It also doesn't help that you don't really get to heal after each phase. If you lose half your health in the first phase, that's what you're gonna go into for the rest of this godforsaken battle. But anyway, after you're done with the battle, obviously the game ends. and you get this pretty neat credit scene in which you have to collect coins in a slide. And you may be wondering what the coins are for. Well, there's a section in Spiller's Harbor that features an arcade in which you can play the minigames you already did for Jiggies for a certain amount of coins. And you don't even spend set coins, you just gotta have the number necessary to be able to play the minigame. You don't lose anything. Although for me this section didn't really do much and I was expecting something different for some reason. Even completing the game 100% doesn't really give you anything substantial, as you don't need to do it in order to access the final boss. But to me personally, it was nice to be able to finally complete this game after sleeping on it for so long. Overall, I do feel like this game is one of those cases of a GBA version of an already established formula working out pretty well. And for a Banjo Kazooie game, it does its job right. And it's also safe to say that if your first Banjo game is this one, before you get into the N64 titles, I would say it will definitely be able to pave the way for you to enjoy these older games. Obviously, it will be a lot better to start off with the first game, but I would also say you're not really missing out on anything by starting out with the GBA title. But definitely do not start with Tui. Trust me, that game is a sequel that is better off approach after having played the first game before. And yeah, that's my video on this underrated gem. I do feel like Grunty's Revenge is a game that is not talked about enough, and part of me wishes people who have played the two previous games will give this one a go. It doesn't really get annoying until the final boss fight, and even then I feel with some correct timing and patience, you will be able to beat this in around 6 or 7 hours. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching everyone. As always, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to like it and subscribe, as that's what helps out the channel and motivates me to keep doing content like this. And also, friendly reminder that I stream on Twitch regularly, and as of the recording of this video, I'm still trying to hit affiliate, so any support over there is appreciated as well. And with that said, I'm out. Have a good rest of your day and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!